There's one, there's one, there's one. Healthy fish. Boy, these Santee Cooper bass are gorgeous. I mean, just gorgeous. Look at that. Yeah, just fat, just healthy. Haven't spawned yet. We're warming up for the Santee Cooper tournament. Stop number 6 on our Bassmaster Tour. It has been a rocket ship ride through spring. I mean, we have just been fishing every week. And now we're on one of the premier lakes in the country, Santee Cooper. The fish are moving up to spawn. We've had some cold fronts come through, but now the water's starting to stabilize. The fish are in water that won't much come up over your knees, catching them on soft plastic baits, pitching around in the grass, some spinner baits, some buzz baits. I think it's going to be a fun tournament. There could be some real records set here. If a guy's not on them big time in this tournament, he's going to falter. That's a good way to start my morning. I like it. And there's no boats around, which I like that even better. All right. This is really slow, methodic fishing, what I'm doing here. I like to move. I like throwing a spinnerbait and a buzzbait. And in practice, the first couple of days, we had some clouds and rain, and they were hitting a buzzbait and spinnerbait up in this stuff. But today, we've got this high blue and not a lot of wind. You know, a lot of times when you've got, you know, real clear, calm conditions, a lot of fishermen will think that the fish just quit biting and they're not in the area. They don't move. They just get real sluggish and they sit tight to the bottom. You got to throw something that's a little more subtle. And I'm just taking this soft plastic bait with almost no weight and throwing it into these lily pads and letting it sink to the bottom, and then just twitch it a couple of times and let it go back to the bottom. And when the fish hit it, they just dunk your line and swim off with it. It's just pretty textbook pre-spawn, spawn fishing, because these fish love to spawn in these lily pads. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Water's about 62, 63 degrees. It was about 57 the first day of practice, and we've had this continual warming and warm rain, and these fish are just slowly moving to the banks. You know, I've got a couple of issues I'm going to have to deal with in this tournament. One is I got a pretty good place up the river where I don't get many bites, but when I do, they're really nice ones. I can catch them in the bushes on a spinnerbait, which is a way I really like to fish. Down here, it seems like we've got a little more boat traffic. There's a lot more boats in these areas. And, you know, that's the only issue. We'll see how practice today plays out and have to make my decision based on the weather. But right now, Santee Cooper's looking like a pretty darn good place to have a tournament. It's about time we got the fish without a rain suit, too. Until tomorrow, and then it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so we'll see. Enjoy it while we're at it. You know, the average fisherman would never, ever think about fishing up this shallow. I mean, it's just, the water's this deep, you can see the bottom. In situations like this, it's best to make long casts, keep your trolling motor on a low constant speed, and just ease along. Got my motor trimmed up, and just creeping through the stuff, making long pitches or long casts. If you try and get up on top of these fish and flip to them, you spook them. If you make the long cast, you don't disturb them, and you let that bait fall weightless, that little soft plastic bait. There's a lot of baits that'll work. You know, I'm using a Senko, but there's, you know, floating worm will work, a fluke will work. There's a lot of different soft plastic baits that'll work. And, you know, 14 or 17 pound test line, just rig it on a 4-aught, big 4-aught hook, and that's all the weight you need to let it drift down in that 1.5 to 2 foot of water.
Stay tuned. More Angler on Tour is coming up.
You know, one of the biggest things to deal with when you're fishing these big flats, particularly in the backs where I'm going, I'm trying to target areas that have feeder channels come in and flatten out. but you're committed to lengthy idles because it's just right there. The stumps, there's just stumps everywhere. You see cypress trees, but there's also stumps just below the water. So if you don't idle, you could really, destroy your lower unit. So you may have 5, 10, 15-minute idles in and out of these places. So when you come into one, you're committing to fish for quite a while. And if you run into one, save 5 minutes, you may knock your lower unit off and blow your whole day. So it's an issue. See these guys over here, they're idling, they're rocking off the stumps, and it's just a minefield. Right on that isolated little patch of pads. Get him up. Gosh, he's strong. That's a decent fish. Whoa. All right. Healthy. These fish here are so healthy. There's another soft bait in the water. Well, he clocked it too. I pulled out from that little grass line and actually finally got some breeze start to blow here. I'm in this little backwater pond, and I pulled out from that lily pad line, and there's an isolated clump over there, if you can see it, and I just kind of worked the bait past that isolated clump, and he came out and grabbed it, and he was pretty aggressive. I mean, really come out and got after it. Got a lot of marks on this one. I don't know what. They may be just starting to get ready to move up. They get little marks and lacerations on them sometimes. Pretty fish. It's going to take a sack of these with a kicker every day to make a check in this tournament. There's so many fish in this lake, even though today has been kind of slow. Those fish are so strong when this water's in that mid to upper 50s, it's in their comfort range, and they just pull so darn hard. But, everything looks right. I mean, the pads, the color of the water, the depth, everything looks right, but I've only been able to catch one fish an area, and it's just very frustrating that I can't put 2 or 3 or 4 together in one place, and it's been that way for me the whole entire practice. And I don't like to go into any practice just having places where I caught one bass, and really I haven't had a place, while I've been catching good quality, I haven't had a place where I've caught multiple fish. I just get frustrated a little bit with that. I'm hoping it's just going to get a little bit better. Just a little bit better fishing. When you're fishing these subtle, soft plastic baits and you're just fishing them on the fall, what you have to do is you have to kind of visualize where a bass would be set up. There's just a ton of holes in these lily pads and little open spots, and those are perfect little ambush areas. So the key is you take the bait and you pitch it in, and let it fall nice and soft into the pocket, and then you drop your rod tip and you fish the bait on a controlled slack. You drop the rod the same rate the bait's falling on a controlled slack. Watch your line, let it go to the bottom. If you don't get a bite, twitch it once or twice and reel it in and pitch it into a new spot. Most of the time these fish will hit the bait on the fall. So you're watching your line, dropping your rod, letting it fall, hit the bottom, pick it up once or twice, shake it, and then move it. It's a reaction strike, what you're basically generating with that slow fall. And these type of baits, they fall with a slow wiggling action. It has one of the most unique falls of any lure that I've ever seen, is these Senko type baits, these soft plastic baits. And in the summertime when these fish are staging to spawn, boy, it is a deadly, deadly lure. Real slow. You have to just really slow. A lot of people try and overfish this bait, twitch it and work it like they would a plastic worm. And it's just not necessary. These baits are real dense, real heavy, and they work best when you just let them do their own thing. It looks like a little slug or a worm in the water that they just wiggle on the way down, and boy, they are beautiful. It's almost like cheating when you get around them, because they do eat it.
Don't go away. Angler on Tour will be...
Little guy. That's number 3. Same deal, just fishing the outside edge of this little grass. This wind's picked up a little bit, and I thought they might hit a spinnerbait, and I threw a spinnerbait for a little while and couldn't get them to bite a spinnerbait, so just went back to using this little Senko, and I caught that guy right there. It's not a real big one, but as tough as it's been, you know, I think that this might be a good bait. It might really play in this tournament. It's definitely the key has been to be on this outside edge of this grass and to pitch that bait in there and just let it fall on a controlled slack. Not do anything with it. Don't twitch it. Don't work it. Don't jerk it. Just let it go to the bottom. And when they get it, just donk, and you just tighten up and set the hook, and you got them. But the key with this bait is to let this bait do its own thing. Do not work it. Don't overwork this bait. Just let it fall to the bottom. It just shimmies on the way down, and it looks like something that they want to eat. Nice one too, buddy. Right in those pads. The biggest fish today. See that little tuft of like shoreline grass right there? That fish was I just threw up the edge of it and started working it out, and he came up and got it. A beautiful fish. That's the kind you need in this tournament, I guarantee you. You see this little roughage on the tail where fish is starting to spawn. A lot of times when you get up in these pads and vegetation and stuff like that, if you target little insignificant different things like that shoreline grass that's sticking up out of there, a lot of times fish will kind of move to that kind of stuff, and you know, that'll be the key thing inside the grass. You know, the biggest thing I've had to deal with today is the fact that fish just aren't biting enough to where I can catch numbers in one area. I've got 4 or 5 places that have what I feel are the right composition. You know, they got the right kind of water and the pads and that type of thing. And I've gotten maybe 1 to 2 bites in each area. But, you know, when you're catching fish of this quality, it doesn't take the 5 bites, and you got a 20 to 22 pound, 24 pound bag, you know. Just beautiful, healthy fish. Cool. I think now it's just going to kind of depend on the weather. You know, I've got 2 schools of thought on how I can approach this thing. One is I can fish the way I don't really like to fish, slow, methodic, pitching in these holes, or I can go up the lake and throw a spinnerbait around bushes and flooded cover. The upper lake's actually got a lot more cover in the water, and it looks better to me. Historically, though, this lower lake always produces better. So, you know, I'm kind of split between my schools of thought. But I guess really what I'll have to do is play the weather and the wind. You know, they're calling for some serious weather tomorrow, and nothing will screw this lake up, particularly just being able to get around, worse than the wind. I mean, the wind will really, really mess this lake up, or at least it can. So I have to go in and just kind of watch the weather and see how the morning goes, and maybe do a little coin flip and decide what to do in the morning. Whatever decision I make needs to be a good one. We're down to the wire.
Joe Thomas from Cincinnati, Ohio. How many bass, Joe?
Just got 3 fish. Had a tough day.
3 bass. And the weight will run up to 714.
Thanks, Fish.
Thank you, Joe Thomas. 7 pounds and 14 ounces.
You know, you need to keep the guns and the sharp objects away from me. There's days that you really, really wonder if you belong out here. I made a decision this morning. You'd never know it right now, but we had the mother of all storms come through this morning with just ripping winds, lightning, thunder, and I made a decision to go to the upper lake because of the fact that I knew I could get there safely, and the water that I was fishing was protected, and I like it up there. And I thought it was the right conditions to go up there and catch a few bass. I thought I could catch maybe 3 or 4 that would weigh somewhere, 10 to 14 pounds. I really believed I could get that done. And I didn't go the lower lake. Well, the lower lake turned on, and there were about 20 stringers over 20 pounds caught, throwing a spinnerbait in those same lily pads that I was flipping in. And the guys fought the wind and the waves to get there and got back in those protected areas, and they just hammered them. And I caught 3 bass that weighed 8 pounds. I'm in 152nd place. And I'll tell you what, if I don't hurry, I'm not going to get to make the trip to California. I came here in 69th place, and they're going to take 100 people to California, and I don't even want to look to know where I fell in the Angler of the Year standings. But I do know one thing is I've got to tighten it up, and I've got to, they're predicting another weather system tomorrow. It's going to be rainy. I'm tying my spinnerbait on. I'm going to go to the lower lake. I'm going to fish the places that I caught some bass in, and just try and salvage what I can of this tournament and hope to slip into that top 100. It's just, the last couple tournaments have just been really rugged for me. I just can't, where I felt like the first few I was putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, these last couple tournaments, it just seems like everything's coming unraveled. And it's not been a lot of fun, I'll guarantee you that. One shy. If I had that little one out of there, we'd have had a whale of a stringer. But I think it's what I needed to make that advancement to California. It might even make me a paycheck. Money yesterday was $13.13. Usually it doubles minus a pound, so that'd be about 26 pounds to make the money. I had 8 yesterday and hopefully about 20 today, so maybe I'll make a check.
Weight 21 pounds, 13 ounces, Joe.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Today I went and just kind of tried to stay away from people, and every time I'd fish in a little pocket that I caught one in practice, there'd be somebody there in the top 10, and they'd kind of politely ask me to leave, and I'd ease around the corner, and I'd catch a 5-pounder. About this afternoon, about 2 o'clock, I came on Tommy Martin. He kind of turned his boat around and said, ask me to leave, because I need one more big one. Well, if nothing else, today makes me feel better about me. Yesterday, 3 bass weighing 8 pounds was just devastating, and they caught so many fish, and I just made the wrong choice. I ran north and I should have ran south. And today I went south. I just kind of stayed out of people's way and just went fishing, and I caught 22 pounds, and that was with a 12-incher in my box. I could have potentially had a 25, 26-pound bag if I'd have just had that 5th fish. But I feel good about the way things are shaking out. I haven't seen the standings yet, but I got to believe 30 pounds is going to put me somewhere around the money cut and hopefully give me enough weight to advance to California, which is the goal at this point. Make the 100 cut, go to California, fish the next 2, and try and make the 50 cut.
There's more Angler on Tour with Joe Thomas coming up.
At the Toledo Bend tournament, the sport of fishing suffered a great loss when Carl Maxfield of South Carolina, a 15-year veteran of the Bassmaster Tournament Trail, passed away of a heart attack in his home. And ironically enough, coming here to his home lake at Santee Cooper in South Carolina, I think we all felt it fitting to have a memorial here for Carl. And we all attended the day before practice began. And we had literally every competitor in the tournament showed up and to pay their last respects to Carl via a video presentation that was really overwhelming. And it kind of puts things in perspective. I'm 40 years old now. I've got a family, and to see someone barely 50 years old pass on, it kind of puts things in perspective. I put so much emphasis on my tournament competition and on the sponsors and on making a living that maybe sometimes we forget things that are really important. And I think seeing this kind fighter, winner on the trail. He's just a great guy that we're all going to miss. And I can remember years ago when I won the Red Man All-American, standing backstage with Carl, and he was in contention to win. And I think we all knew that I had to turn in the bag, and Carl reached over and kind of punched me on the shoulder and kind of gave me the thumbs up. That was just his way of saying, hey man, it's cool, you beat me fair and square. And that was just the kind of guy he was. And I think not only have the fishermen lost a great friend, but the sport of competitive fishing has lost just a tremendous competitor.